The yard fell silent. A fight had broken out near the metal pull-up bars, and now 2 men lay bleeding on the cold concrete. The guards shouted orders, boots pounding against the ground, but the chaos was already out of control. One inmate, tall, covered in tattoos, eyes wild, refused to drop the shank in his hand. The other, his jumpsuit torn and soaked with blood, tried to crawl away. The siren screamed, loud and sharp. Within seconds, armed guards surrounded them, pointing pepperball guns. "Down! Everybody down!" a voice yelled. But the tattooed man didn't listen. He took one last step forward before a burst of spray hit him straight in the face. He dropped hard, coughing and crying out. Within minutes, the yard was cleared. The men were dragged away in cuffs. One of them, the one with the shank, was going straight to the SHU, solitary confinement, a small, cold cell where the sun never reached. As the heavy door slammed behind him, he took one deep breath and muttered, "I told them not to mess with me." But what really happened that morning on the yard? And how did things get so bad that a workout break turned into blood on the ground? It started weeks earlier. Marcus Rivera had been at Pelican Bay Prison for 5 years. He wasn't a saint, but he wasn't a monster either. He'd grown up in Los Angeles, got caught up with the wrong crowd, and ended up behind bars for armed robbery. Pelican Bay was different from any place he'd ever been, cold, gray, and always tense. Every man here had a reputation, and every look meant something. You either earned respect or got stepped on. Marcus mostly kept to himself. He worked out on the yard, traded stories with his cellmate Rico, and counted the days until his parole hearing. But Pelican Bay had its own rules. You didn't choose sides. The sides chose you. The prison yard was split like a map. Gangs ran the corners, and every mob scene belonged somewhere. One morning, Marcus noticed trouble brewing. 2 rival groups, one from the south side, the other from up north, had been staring each other down all week. It started with whispers and insults, then with small fights in the chow hall. The guards tried to keep it calm, but everyone knew a storm was coming. Marcus didn't want any part of it, but staying neutral was dangerous. "You gotta choose, bro," Rico told him one night. "If things go down, you need someone watching your back." Marcus shook his head. "I just want to get out of here alive." The next few days were quiet, too quiet. The air in the yard felt heavy. Every sound, every laugh felt fake. Marcus could feel something was about to happen. He could see it in people's eyes. Even the guards were on edge. Then came the morning of the lockdown. It was just another workout session when someone yelled, "It's going down!" Before Marcus could turn, fists were flying. The sound of metal clanging echoed as someone pulled out a hidden blade. The yard exploded into chaos. Guards rushed in, alarms blaring. Marcus ducked low, trying to stay clear, but someone crashed into him, knocking him down. He looked up and saw Rico standing over another man with a sharpened piece of steel. "Rico, stop!" Marcus shouted. But Rico didn't. His face twisted with rage, and in that moment everything Marcus had tried to avoid came crashing down around him. The guards were coming fast. Pepper spray filled the air. Someone screamed, and just as Marcus tried to pull Rico away, a loud bang echoed through the yard. The bang wasn't a gunshot. It was the sound of a flashbang grenade hitting the ground, bursting into a blinding white flash. Marcus hit the floor, his ears ringing. The smell of smoke and pepper spray filled the air, burning his eyes. Guards stormed the yard in riot gear, shouting orders. "Face down! Don't move!" But not everyone listened. Some inmates were still swinging, their rage too far gone. Marcus could barely breathe. He felt someone grab his arm and twist it behind his back, forcing him down. A knee pressed into his neck. "I didn't do anything," he shouted, but no one cared. The chaos didn't stop until every man on the ground was cuffed and dragged away. When it was over, the yard looked like a battlefield, blood stains on the concrete, torn uniforms, shanks scattered across the dirt. Rico was gone, taken away first. Marcus didn't know if he was alive or dead. Hours later, Marcus found himself in a small, freezing room with white walls. A correctional officer stood across from him, flipping through a folder. "Rivera, Marcus," the man said flatly. "You were seen near the fight. You tried to pull another inmate away, right?" Marcus nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, I was trying to stop it." The officer didn't even look up. "Doesn't matter. You were involved. You're going to the SHU until we sort this out." Marcus's heart sank. "The SHU?" he asked quietly. "For how long?" "Depends," the officer said, signing a paper. "Could be weeks, could be months." They walked him down a long hallway with no windows. The deeper they went, the colder it got. The walls were painted dull gray, and the lights buzzed overhead. When they reached the end, a massive steel door opened with a loud clang. "Cell 23, the guard said. "Enjoy the quiet." The cell was small, so small Marcus could stretch his arms and almost touch both walls. There was a steel bed bolted to the floor, a thin morse to tress, and a tiny window near the ceiling that showed nothing but sky. The silence was heavy. He could hear his own heartbeat. At first, he told himself it wouldn't be that bad. A few days, maybe. Just keep calm. But time in the SHU didn't move like time anywhere else. Minutes stretched into hours, hours into days. No one talked. No one moved. The only sounds were the distant clanging of doors and the occasional scream from another cell. By day 3, Marcus was talking to himself just to hear a voice. By day 5, he started to imagine things, voices whispering, footsteps outside his door that weren't there. The isolation was breaking him down. He thought about Rico. Was he still alive? Was he in the SHU too? Or worse? One morning, as Marcus was staring at the ceiling, he heard faint tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the wall next to his bed. He froze, then tapped back. Tap, tap. The sound paused, then returned. 3 short taps, 1 long. It wasn't random. Someone was trying to talk to him. He pressed his ear against the wall. A whisper came through. "Yo, you Marcus." Marcus's heart jumped. "Yeah, who's that?" "It's Rico," the voice said weakly. "They put me next door." "You okay, bro?" Marcus exhaled in relief. "Man, I thought you were dead." "Nah," Rico said, "but they got me bad. They think I started it." His voice cracked. "They said I might get charged for assault, maybe even attempted murder." Marcus didn't know what to say. He leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling again. Everything felt unreal. Then, that night, something strange happened. The lights flickered twice, then went out completely. The block went dark. From somewhere down the hall, a guard yelled, "Power cut, everyone stay put." Marcus could hear the sound of locks shifting, metal scraping against metal. Someone was trying to open a door. Then came a scream. And just like the silence shattered again. The scream echoed down the dark hallway, sharp and panicked. Marcus jumped to his feet, heart pounding in his chest. "Rico, you hear that?" he shouted. But there was no answer, just the heavy sound of boots running somewhere in the darkness. The prison's backup lights flickered weakly, painting the walls in a sickly yellow glow. Then came another noise. Clang, clang. It was the unmistakable sound of a steel door being forced open. Marcus pressed his face to the crack in his door, trying to see anything through the slit of glass. He could make out shadows moving fast, 2 of them. One had something in his hand. He felt his stomach twist. Nobody escaped from the SHU. Not ever. A guard's voice boomed through the corridor. "Everyone stay down. Lights are coming back." Seconds later, the lights flickered on again. For a moment, Marcus thought it was over, until he saw the streaks of red on the floor. A guard was down. "Man, what's going on out there?" he whispered through the wall. Rico's voice came back shaky. "I think somebody jumped a CO. They took his keys." Marcus froze. That couldn't be real. The SHU was supposed to be locked down tighter than any place in America. If someone got the guards' keys, it meant they knew exactly what they were doing. Within minutes, alarms screamed through the building. Red lights flashed across the walls. "All inmates on the ground," came the order over the speakers. "This is not a drill." Marcus lay flat on his stomach, hands over his head. Through the noise, he heard footsteps running past his door. Heavy breathing. Then, click. The lock on his cell door turned. He didn't move. The door creaked open slowly, and a tall figure stepped inside. The man's face was hidden under a guard's cap, but Marcus could tell from his eyes. It wasn't a guard. It was another inmate wearing a stolen uniform. The man whispered, "You want to get out of her, or not?" Marcus shook his head. "You're crazy. They'll shoot us before we hit the next gate." The man grinned. "Then I guess I'm dying free." He stepped back into the hall and disappeared into the flashing red light. Marcus stood there shaking, torn between fear and the wild thought of escape. He looked toward Rico's cell. "Rico, you still there?" "Yeah, but don't do it," Rico warned. "They'll lock down the whole place." Too late. Gunshots echoed through the corridor, rubber bullets followed by shouts and the sound of boots storming in. "He's down! He's down!" a guard yelled. Marcus stepped back from the door, breathing hard. He could see through the narrow window. 2 guards dragging the man who tried to escape, limp and bleeding. Hours passed before the chaos settled. The lights stayed on all night. Every inmate in the SHU was questioned. Marcus told the truth. He didn't try to run, didn't touch anyone. Still, he stayed in solitary for another month while the investigation continued. The silence became his world again. But something had changed inside him. He'd seen how fast everything could fall apart in that place, how a man could go from the yard to the SHU and from the SHU to a body bag, all in a heartbeat. When the day finally came for him to leave the SHU, Marcus stepped out into the sunlight, squinting, breathing air that didn't taste like concrete dust. The guards led him back to general population, but he didn't speak a word. That night, back in his regular cell, he stared out through the tiny window, watching the sky fade from orange to black. The yard was quiet again, too quiet. But Marcus knew what that silence meant now. It wasn't peace. It was waiting. And somewhere deep inside Pelican Bay, behind layers of steel and silence, someone else was tapping on a wall, planning what came next.